Welcome to the Mega Drew Show. In this episode, I'll be counting down my favourite arcade games from Atari. Atari is one of the most iconic names in video game history, developing games since the 1970s. Many of the Atari games found in arcades had extravagant cabinets, often fitted with bespoke controls for their specific game. These machines often stood out from the crowd, so to get the true experience, you'd need to play them on an original cabinet. I had some great experiences of playing most of these games when I was growing up, and I really enjoyed going back through Atari's arcade catalogue to make this list. So let's begin this exciting countdown with my choice for number 10. At number 10, I've gone with an absolute classic, 1981's Centipede. This fixed vertical shoot-'em-up was one of the most popular games of the arcade golden age, with the player aiming to take down the centipede on each stage as it scrolls to the bottom of the screen in different patterns. In addition to the centipede, spiders and scorpions will attempt to attack you, but these distractions can be destroyed for bonus points. It's a simple game, but one of Atari's most iconic, and it's still a lot of fun to play if you can find an original cabinet and make use of the trackball controller. At number 9, I've chosen Road Blasters, which was released in 1987. This combat racing game required you to race through each stage, destroying enemy vehicles and roadside gun turrets. You need to keep an eye on your fuel tanks, which can be topped up by collecting icons, and occasionally weapon power-ups will be dropped by a helicopter. The graphics and sound were good for its time, and the combat elements make the game a lot of fun to play. The best way to experience Road Blasters was in the deluxe cockpit-style cabinet, so if you're lucky enough to see one, I'd definitely recommend playing it. At number 8, I've gone with 1989's futuristic combat racing game, Stun Runner. This was one of those arcade games that really stood out in 1989, as it featured polygon graphics which weren't common at the time. Not only was Stun Runner a great looking game, it felt incredibly fast. You had no direct control over your vehicle's speed, but the better your driving skills, the faster you'd go. In addition to this were the combat elements. Your vehicle is equipped with lasers that enable you to shoot down enemies that get in your way. The deluxe cabinet was designed to look like part of the game's vehicle, and really stood out amongst the other arcade cabinets of its time. It may look very dated now, but Stun Runner is still a lot of fun to play. I've gone with 1989's Badlands at number 7. This was a single-screen post-apocalyptic combat racing game, where 3 cars race around various tracks, with each one trying to take first place. Each car is equipped with a standard cannon that can be used to slow down your opponents. Weapon upgrades can be purchased, allowing you to fire missiles that destroy other drivers. The original cabinet was fitted with 2 steering wheel controllers, which allowed up to 2 players to take part in some competitive combat racing. At number 6, I've chosen the top-down hack-and-slash game, Gauntlet II. This sequel arrived in arcades in 1986 and built on the original formula with some minor improvements and additional features. You choose from one of 4 character classes and navigate your way through over 100 levels whilst battling a variety of enemies and avoiding traps. Playing the Gauntlet games was always a highlight of any trip to an arcade. The opportunity to team up with 3 other players in the mid to late 80s was something I'd never seen before, and I still enjoy having a game on one of those enormous cabinets whenever I get a chance. At number 5, I've chosen 1985's newspaper delivery simulator, Paperboy. The object of the game is to deliver newspapers to each home on your subscription list. If you miss one of the subscriptions, the customer will cancel their delivery for the following day. Standing in your way are all manner of neighbourhood obstacles, from drains and lawnmowers to cars and workmen. At the end of each day, you're faced with an obstacle course that allows you to earn some bonus points before you reach the finish. I'll always consider Paperboy to be an arcade classic, and it's great fun to play on an original cabinet with the handlebar controller. At number 4, I've chosen Super Sprint, which arrived in arcades in 1986. This single-screen high-speed racing game features 4 cars aiming to be the first across the finish line. Up to 3 players can take part in the action, with the original cabinet having 3 steering wheel controllers. Players can customise their vehicle after each race by collecting the spanner icons that can be found on each track. I remember playing a lot of Super Sprint in arcades when I was growing up, and although it's incredibly simple, it's an awesome game that I still enjoy playing today. At number 3, I've chosen Zybots. This third-person shoot-'em-up arrived in arcades in 1987. Up to 2 players can take part in the action, which involves navigating mazes and destroying waves of robot enemies. The original cabinet is very striking, with the screen set back from the controls and each player having a rotating joystick. Zybots is a very immersive sci-fi action game, and it's one I always enjoy going back to. At number 2, I've gone with Escape from the Planet of the Robot Monsters. This isometric adventure game was released in 1989 and is inspired by classic science fiction B-movies. The evil Reptilons have taken over Planet X, and it's your mission to rescue the human hostages and stop the robot army from destroying Earth. The first time I played this game was when we visited a friend of my dad's who had an Atari ST. I absolutely loved what I played of it, so I'd always be on the lookout for a cabinet when we visited an arcade. The game has an incredible atmosphere that really draws you in. At times you'll be completely surrounded by enemies, and it's a real challenge to escape unharmed. The bold graphics and superb soundtrack really made this one stand out at the time, and I'd definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't already. My choice for number 1 is the 1983 Star Wars arcade game. Every time I see those vector graphics, it takes me back. This was one of the first arcade games I remember seeing, and I've got great memories of watching my dad blasting those TIE fighters and destroying the Death Star. The iconic music and digitised speech would always draw me in, and the deluxe cockpit cabinet enhanced the experience even further. As you progress through each phase, things become increasingly more difficult, and what starts off as a pretty easy game soon becomes a real challenge. Ideally, you'd need to play the game on an original machine to make use of the flight controls and fire buttons, and if you can find a deluxe cabinet, it's the perfect way to experience this Atari arcade classic.
I'm on part 2. Let's go. Force is strong for this one.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to let me know your thoughts in the comments section below and subscribe to the channel for future content.